how do I even begin to talk about a game that means so much to me? I'm going to have to approach this review from 3 different perspectives. Firstly, as a lifelong gamer. Secondly, as a massive Indiana Jones fan. And finally, as someone with more than a passing interest in the legend of Atlantis.
Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis comes from the golden age of what's called the point-and-click adventure. The premise of these games is simple. You click where you want your character to walk and can interact with the environment in a number of ways. This format, though a simple concept, generated some of the best and most intricate adventures of the early 90s. LucasArts had already given us Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in the form of both an action game and a point-and-click adventure, but for the next Indiana Jones outing, they'd give us a completely original story by Hal Barwood. Like its predecessor, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis was available in both an action game and an adventure game. But while Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the action game, was an atrocity in every conceivable way, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the graphic adventure, was destined to become a classic and arguably the best point-and-click adventure ever made.
This game was released in 1992 and the CD-ROM talkie version in 1993, the same year that my family got its first PC. And I still remember the local sailor coming round with a big box containing the PC software, and I looked on kind of disinterested. That is, until I noticed that unmistakable logo on the front of the box. Up until that point, my gaming had been restricted to the consoles of the day and to the Commodore 64. I never really considered the PC a serious gaming platform, and who did back in those days? The only time I ever used a PC to play games was when I was round at my dad's house playing the original Prince of Persia. But all that was about to change, because that first family PC came with this very copy of Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, the graphic adventure, and I had no idea what to expect.
First, the LucasArts logo appears, accompanied by some suitably mysterious music. And then that's the way. The Indiana Jones title flies right into your face, accompanied by the theme music, and then the man himself makes his entrance.
Alright, Jones, how are you gonna find that statue and all this junk?
From the offset, all you know is that you're looking for a statue, and all you can do is click on objects and Indiana Jones will either interact with them or tell you about them. This is the developer's way of easing you into the gameplay. After several falls, you find the statue and Indy returns to his office where Marcus Brody and a Mr. Smith are waiting for him. When Mr. Smith attempts to take the statue at gunpoint, a fight ensues, and although he escapes, Indy manages to grab his coat. It turns out that Mr. Smith is in fact a Nazi agent named Klaus Kerner, who was also carrying with him an article about Indy and his former colleague Sophia Hapgood.
Where is she now?
She gave up archaeology to become a psychic.
How odd.
You can say that again.
Indy, Kerner found you. What if he finds her? We should warn the woman.
You're right. I want to know more about that statue. You know, Marcus, the coldest year of my life was the one I spent in Iceland with Sophia.
And so Indy travels to New York to find Sophia, and this is where the game proper begins. The gameplay is really self-explanatory and entirely mouse-driven until a fight breaks out. You simply click on the action you'd like to take, and then click on the item, or person, you'd like to perform it on. It's not long before you come across the doorman Biff, and there are 3 ways you can attempt to get past him. First, you can try the silver-tongued approach and try to talk your way past. Dialogue is performed by simply clicking on what you'd like to say from the bottom of the screen. The person you're talking to will respond appropriately.
Just let me in, you ape.
Ape is it? Say you're sorry or say your prayers.
Your second option is to simply antagonize him into a fight and knock him out. Combat is controlled by the number pad on your keyboard. It was generally very hard to die in the old LucasArts point-and-click adventures. As the manual states, it was against their design philosophy. The Indiana Jones point-and-click adventures, however, stood out against the likes of Monkey Island and Day of the Tentacle, in that death could be quite a frequent occurrence. However, in case you find the combat too difficult, they give you the ability to perform the Sucker Punch, which knocks enemies out cold by simply pressing the 0 key.
I guess I got lucky. I'm not sure I want to do a lot of fighting.
A cop-out, some might say, but remember that these games were about the adventure itself, not a cycle of dying and reloading. Your final, and more cerebral option to bypass Biff is to negotiate your way past the crates and climb into the theatre through the fire exit. After ruining Sophia's presentation on Atlantis, you both return to her ransacked apartment where she reveals her necklace, an Atlantean artifact that she believes holds the spirit of Nur-Ab Sal, an Atlantean king, and her spirit guide.
Did you see that?
Yeah, creepy. Is your electric bill paid up?
That was Nur-Ab Sal. His spirit is close.
Next, it's off to Iceland to meet Bjorn Heimdall, an old acquaintance. Then it's off to Tikal, where you'll learn more about the most important item in the game and the one that will guide you to Atlantis, the lost dialogue of Plato.
One of the things that makes the original Indiana Jones films such masterpieces was the writer's ability to take real mythology and twist it and tweak it, just enough so that the adventures of Indiana Jones become that much more fantastic, but not too much so that the casual observer might actually believe that he could indeed, for example, go and discover the Whale of Souls. Now, the story of Atlantis in real life comes from the dialogues of Plato, the Timaeus and the Critias. One of the great mysteries in the study of Atlantis is why Plato just stops writing as Critias is relating the fate of Atlantis. So what better way to expand upon this mystery in the Indiana Jones universe than to have a mysterious lost dialogue of Plato which concludes the story of Atlantis. The writing of Hal Barwood is every bit on par with the genius of the original Indiana Jones trilogy.
The mystery metal orichalcum, found in bead form in the game, is also a key element to the plot, and it too really exists not only in Plato's Atlantis, but other historical texts as well. For the record, modern scholars are still unsure as to what orichalcum actually was. The theories range from a gold-copper alloy to a metal lost to us in the present day. Whatever the case, in Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, it acts as a battery for Atlantean artifacts and machines.
It fits perfectly. Whoa!
Look, it melted itself right out of the ice.
After trading an Atlantean artifact in the Azores, you discover the location of the lost dialogue of Plato, and its exact location can change from game to game. Once it's in your possession, it's time to make a key choice in the game. The race is on to beat the Nazis led by Klaus Kerner and Mad Dr. Uberman to Atlantis before they harness its power for their own ends. This is where Fate of Atlantis offers up its massive replay potential. Sophia will ask you to choose either the team path, fists path, or wits path, and this decision will change the course of the game up until you reach Atlantis itself. She will advise you on a path decided by which of the three ways you chose to bypass Biff in New York, but ultimately, the choice is yours.
Alright, I'm ready to go.
Not so fast. First, I'm going to tell your fortune. Look into my eyes. Deep into my eyes. For Pete's sake, I'm not going to hurt you. Now hold still. You are a remarkable man, Dr. Jones. You possess great strength of character. You are resourceful, but you're better with your fists than your head. I foresee combat and violence along your path to Atlantis, a path too dangerous for me.
I'd rather tackle this together with you.
Are you absolutely sure?
Yes, I'm sure. We should team up.
Okay, if that's how you feel, we'll go together.
Don't get any funny ideas. I'll be running the show.
You make it sound so romantic.
All three paths take you to pretty much the same locations in the game, but the characters you meet and what happens at those locations may differ.
Here, take this knife before I use it on you.
The path choices speak for themselves. The team path will have Indy and Sophia working together. The fist path is heavy on fighting, and the wits path involves more complicated puzzle solving. Take for example the antiquities dealer Omar al-Shabar in Algiers. In the team path, you and Sophia will borrow camels from him in an attempt to locate a German dig site. In the Fists path, you'll have to save him from a Nazi, and in the Wits path, you'll have to trick his servant into wearing a fez so that you can more easily follow him to Omar's house, imprison him, and steal his camel.
Map or no map, you'll never find the dig site.
Put a sock in it.